ஒருங்கிணைந்த ஆந்திரா தெலுங்கானா பகுதிகளில் ஏறத்தாழ 7,000 கிராமங்களை இணைத்து 4 லட்சத்திற்கும் மேற்பட்ட உழவர்களையும் இணைத்து 38 லட்சம் ஏக்கரில் இயற்கை வேளாண்மை செய்து வரும் ம.ஆஞ அவர்களை இன்றைக்கு நாம் நேர்காணல் செய்ய இருக்கிறோம். இந்த இயற்கை வேளாண்மையில் கிடைக்கும் பொருட்களை கூட்டுறவு அங்காடி மூலம் விற்பனையும் செய்து வருகிறார் ம.ஆஞ. தமிழ் தேசிய பேரியக்கத்தின் பொதுச் செயலாளர் ஐயா கி. வெங்கட்ராமன் அவர்களை நேர்காணல் செய்கிறார். வாருங்கள், நேர்காணலை காண்போம்.
வணக்கம். So yesterday that your speech in the conference, Tamil Traditional Farming Conference, was well received. Even not only in the conference hall. So in the morning when I went to this tea shop, unknown people met me and appreciated your speech. It is well received. Very kind of you. Is it your first visit to Tamil Nadu?
No, I had been visiting Tamil Nadu several times.
But it is a small town.
Yes. I used to visit only Chennai and Madurai kind of places.
Okay. Very fine. So tell us about your how you studied in agriculture and you are a IRS person. How you are interested in the organic farming and mobilizing the farmers?
I did my PhD in agriculture from Indian Agriculture Research Institute. And while I was doing my PhD, I actually had a passion to become a civil servant so that I can do better kind of thing. But that's the time when actually Indian farmers were also fighting for against WTO. So I was trying to understand when all books and my college says agriculture is really doing well and then we have a lot of good technologies, etc. There are also farmer suicides happening around. So from 86 when I joined my college for BSc Agriculture, I have seen in the college we are told there are good technologies, but outside the college I see farmer suicides happening. So that's a kind of contradiction I could see. So over 10 years when I was actually trying to study agriculture, Indian economy and then directly interact with the farmers, I could see that there are a lot of gaps. And my initial understanding was that gap is because of the wrong execution. So its bureaucracy is not doing well. So if we can do it better, then we can do better job. And during the time, I also tried to understand the political dimension of this whole issue. So the social, economic, but the political dimension. How small farmers are always left out in the process. And also in terms of technology, how hype is created about a technology and we don't we actually don't consider the feedback which is coming from the farmers. So we are only working on a supply side, we don't look at the demand side. Means I develop a technology, I give it to the people, if it doesn't work, it is a farmer's headache. I don't see that I also have a share in that. So I thought I'll do a better job working with the farmers directly. So that's where actually I left Indian Revenue Service and then joined.
Bold decision.
I actually don't think so. If I look back, I joined Agriculture Research Service and I worked for 8 years. IRS I couldn't even work for 1 year. So which actually shows that as a person I may not be fitting there. So that is another thing. I also realized your personality and then your orientation is also very important. How we look at things for your job. Not everyone is made for job. Today in India what is happening is that because of the educational failure, everybody tries to get a government job because there is no responsibility, a fixed income. And if you don't get a job, you become an entrepreneur. Even if you can't become an entrepreneur, you become a farmer. But it actually should be a different. So you should pursue something which you have a passion. So after I joined Agriculture Research Service, I started working with the farmers unions in Hyderabad, around Hyderabad. And one of the very first debate and discussion happened was about the BT cotton field trials. So it was 98. In 98, we found some of the farmers were in some of the farmers' fields, BT cotton was cultivated. farmers unions at that time mistook it as terminator seed. If you remember, there was a whole controversy about terminator seeds. So farmers burnt the fields, and then there was a complaint lodged on the farmers. So a discussion was organized with the farmers union, why actually there is a concern about BT cotton, and then why there is a concern about terminator technology and all these things. So I was explaining about the whole issue, and then from my understanding, and then I realized farmers are actually, so the information sharing and knowledge sharing with farmers is not there actually. Because farmers can understand better if we can explain it better. So we were they were all only told that multinational companies will come and exploit you. And then the Indian agriculture universities were saying we are also developing the technology, so you don't need to depend on a multinational company.
It's public sector.
So one of the farmer got up and asked, sir, if you are saying that the seed has a problem, then whether it is a multinational company or our Indian agriculture research, both will have the same problem. Then I said, yes, true. Say, even if it is done by yourself, also there it will be a problem. So problem is a problem. Then there was a lot of debate whether everything done by government is right. So that dimension actually gave me a different perspective, that we need to present the things in a way that farmers also can understand, and they can understand. Why should we apply filters that farmer will not understand this, farmer will not understand this, they should only be told what to do, not about why, how kind of thing. So then we started actually working towards that. So I saw across the country at the same time several alternatives, very good models, so Nammalvarji and many others across the country. We actually started looking at what is happening in the fields, and we could see a lot of innovations happening even outside the agricultural research. But unfortunately they are all locked up in small scale because they can't be applied to larger area because that scientific understanding is not there. See, I try to solve my problem, but I don't know how that can be applied to your situation. So we thought that's something which is very important to understand, and then we replicate, because anything happens in an ecosystem. So if farmer has to grow a crop, how he understands or she understands the situation, what kind of support they got from the government, where they could sell, what is their living cost. So based on all this is what is the net returns which farmers gets. It's not just a technology. So engineering this part becomes very crucial. Second important thing I also realized is that, see, I came from Tamil Nadu, I came from Hyderabad. No one knows here. If I want to come and talk to farmers, I don't think even 10 farmers would have come. Right? So many farmers came because of you. So this kind of trust building between people, and then so that what they, if somebody trusts you and then you introduce me to them, and they easily understand what I say. If I came alone and then if I speak the same thing or even better, they may not even understand. So it also plays very important to establish that local trust. So that's where we actually try to experiment with how do we work with local groups so that we can reach out to the farmers easily. So it is not my degree or my organization, my experience which actually speaks. It's actually the local group's credibility with the people is what matters. So what we try to do is, we, instead of working with the farmer groups at that point of time, we went to the women groups. And they all daily work with the villagers and all. Then we started saying, how much you spend on pesticides. So we could calculate in a village of 1,000 farmers. I'm talking about 2004. Estimation was that 1 crore. Their 10 years saving was 1 crore. 10 years they struggled to save 1 crore, but they spent in 1 year 1 crore rupees. And we took the data to the government and said, you did a fantastic job of organizing women, building their capacity to save. And in 10 years, they could save 1 crore, and you have spent 1 crore on them, 1 lakh rupees on them, each farmer. They have spent 1 lakh. So you could do this. But they are spending 1 crore. If you can save on that, then it's a much bigger change which can be brought in. And they said, let's experiment with. Because we went to Department of Agriculture also. Department of Agriculture said nothing doing, it won't work. So technology won't work. Then we went to this group and then said, saving. Because you work on saving, let's work on savings. And in 1 year we could show that they could save. And then we took them to a village where entire village farmers stopped using chemicals.
No, but initially, you have started from the women group. Initial response, how is that response? Because here we see even a small farmer who is struggling, he is reluctant to switch over to organic farming.
See, I don't come from a farming community. So I never practiced farming before I actually joined agriculture research or agriculture studying all these things. Like I mentioned, what I realized is that people open up if you also talk in their language. Language is not about Tamil or Telugu. It is about their problem. Say, the moment they understand, you are also trying to understand them, not dominating them. See, in Indian culture, what has happened is that we try to displace knowledge. We don't try to build on their knowledge. Because if you talk to any farmer, the reluctancy comes from the failure they had. They might have tried. See, it's not that they don't experiment, because after all, it is their crop. They might have tried. It might not have worked for them, or it might have been difficult for them. So if you can understand why it happened, then we can find a solution. Many times what happens is we say you are not educated, you don't know. So you don't know environment, you don't know science, you don't know practice, or you don't love earth. So basically we try to displace their experiences, and you discount basically. So the moment you start talking to them, see, unless somebody opens up, you can never bring in a change. So that's what is something which is important, and it cannot be done top down. It can be done only locally. So that's a whole change we need to bring in. So it's not top down, somebody, an expert coming from outside, you don't need actually. What whom you need is to whom this farmer can speak, and then who can explain why it failed and then why it works. That's the important thing. So the way we designed something called as a farmer field school. So every week all the farmers goes to a farm, they understand, they see, say today this is a problem, and then they will have a list of what can be done. They decide, okay, I'll try this, you will try that, he will try that. Next week again they'll come back and say, mine worked, yours didn't work, so let's improve. So one season, so nearly 45 weeks. So in Kharif and Rabi put together 45 weeks. 30 weeks in Kharif and 25 weeks in Rabi, they do this. It's a long-term process, but at the end of the year, almost 80% of them learn and decide what to do. See, they may not do exactly the same thing, and all the farmers will do the way they like. And one of the important thing I also realized is that instead of doing farming very mechanically, if they can find answers, they do it very excitedly. Even if the yield goes down, even if there is a pest problem, they will experiment. See, any entrepreneurship is about experimentation, right? Say, daily we see hundreds of companies registered, but not every company is getting success, right? So that comes in from the ability of a person. So gradually people learn. So if you can put trust on that, facilitate this process, certainly it happens. So two things are required. One, organize them into a group, identify one of the farmer who can communicate better, work with them, let all the people learn. So it's a long-term process, but it really works. That's what we told the government. Then government said, let's invest, let's try. And in one village, they could reduce 50% pesticide use in less than 6 months' time. Then they realized the potential. So what they then started doing is, let's identify such farmers, train them who can train better. We call them community resource persons. Bet on them. If they are convinced, they can demonstrate, others will change. And so this entire process was replicated. So from 10 villages we went to 200 villages, from 200 villages we went to 3000 villages. So this rapid spread happened because of the first initial investment. So it is not about a poster, it is not about a book, it is not about a training program, not about a speech. It is basically showing them that it works. And there could be 100 ways of people tried. I can give hundreds of examples. So we said all that yellow boards where insects stick. No, all of us see, right, on the roadside whenever we are driving on the yellow boards, we see insects. Because insects gets attracted to yellow color. And farmers, believe me, farmers came up with hundreds of experiments. So coconut, they put yellow color and then put it in the field. Next day morning they could see insects on that. Somebody has put a old dabba. So like that. So lot of experiments people did, and so technology evolves like that. So then we realized, so that's how we went about. So it's basically about the process of teaching. It's practices everybody knows. It's about actually how do you teach people so that they're convinced, and then they have a, say, 10 different ways of practicing. Say all of us know what we all need to do to be healthy, but are we actually practicing it? We do based on our convenience. It's the same way farmers also does. So once they realize the economic potential of it, they start doing it. Second thing we realized is that price, basically. So
that is the thing, because at the farmer level and at the government level, what they say is it will not suffice the demand. That is, government says this growing population, it will not meet the demand, that meet the sufficiently. But farmers also know that is the main reluctance. We cannot produce enough for marketing to get the enough income.
So two things we need to understand here. Like they explained how we explain to farmers, we also need to do with the government, with the farmer. See, why farmers focus on yield? Because they expect if I get high yield, I get high income. What is happening is we never calculate what is the cost of that high yield. Say I am getting 4 quintals. If I put another 4 bags of fertilizer, I may get 8 quintals. But whether that additional 4 quintals of yield is equal to the 4 quintals of fertilizer.
Equal to initial 4 quintals. That is not correct.
No, not only that. The additional 4 quintals of fertilizer I am putting in. Say if fertilizer costs and my grain cost, if we compare, if fertilizer is more costlier than this one, it makes no sense. So economic calculations people never do. So the minimum economic calculation is something which is very, very important. How much it is working out for me. Today it is all vague understanding, and all our thinking is, I would say, tuned by the advertisements and then the popular gossip, I would say. All are influenced by that. So for example, I'll take the fairness creams. India sells nearly 1 million tons of fairness cream every day. But not a single person would have become fairer by using that. But everybody buys it. All educated also buys it. Why do they do that? Because you get into an impression, it might not have worked for Venkatraman, but it might work for me. So somehow that's the impression created. The same thing happens. This particular variety of seed has not yielded for everyone, but it may yield for me. This pesticide has not worked, but it may work for me. That kind of thing. So one is a hope, false hope. Other is a desperation. So this false hope and then this desperation we need to address basically. So that comes from a knowledge. So in India, like I said, school education failed, extension also failed. They never treated farmers on par. They never respected their knowledge. They never created a platform where they can understand. That's a theoretical part of it. But practically, if you look at, see, we all claim that India is self-sufficient. Certainly, we produce our food ourselves, and in fact, we are producing more. But how much fertilizer we are importing? So, importing fertilizer is also a dependency, right? Where is the self-sufficiency? So, you are not buying cooked rice, but you are buying raw rice. So you are anyway buying the raw material. So you are not making your own. So self-sufficiency is about how you can make your own and you are not depending on others. Second, and this import also is huge costlier, and the inputs used, the natural gas, the petroleum reserves or the coal are limited in the country. Say under 30-40 years you are not going to have petrol or gas all over the world. Leave aside India, you are not going to have coal, you are not going to have. So how are you going to produce the same fertilizer? You need to start looking at alternatives. Second comes the pollution. So given all that, if the same amount of fertilizer subsidy is spent on organic farming, you can get more or less similar kind of yield. That's the point. Second, yield is not the crop yield per acre. We need to look at the total productivity of the land. You can actually increase the spacing or decrease the spacing, and it changes actually. Because farmers experiment, but that experiments are all are not taken into account. So for example, I would say cotton. So take the case of cotton. We all say each cotton plant gets 100 bolls. But how many are planting? In the entire field, some 4,000 plants. You reduce the number of plants, and then you see that each plant produces more. But it can be the other way around, where you plant more plants. Each plant may only have 10 bolls, but you have 1 lakh plants. You get more or less similar yield.
In the same area.
In the same area. So your soil is poor, so it may not grow big plant, but that small plant also gives you 10 bolls, but you have 1 lakh plants, so you get more. So high density plantation. Rice normally gives you 16 or 17 the panicles, but if you increase the spacing, it can give up to 100. So rice you increase the spacing, cotton you reduce the spacing, it changes. So these are simple agronomic experiments which can actually yield. Second, see, plants needs nutrients, but you are only applying nitrogen. But if other nutrients have to come in, they all have to come from either soil or biomass. So if you can start applying biomass, if you apply crop residues, that can also supplement. There are a number of crops which can also fix nutrients. There are a number of microorganisms which can also mobilize nutrients. So it's basically, we need to take that kind of scientific approach.
Is it sufficient to the volume of production also? Is it sufficient to feed the growing population? That is the government side argument.
See, let's look at the farmers level. Let's not worry about the government. I'll come to the government calculations, how wrong they are. At the farmers level, how much I am putting in, how much I am getting in is what we need to make a calculation, and accordingly we need to make. Say for example, yesterday morning I had a dosa, idli and something else. Afternoon I only had a curd rice. Still I got my nutrients. You might have ate something else, you also got your nutrients. So your input doesn't determine how much you eat, how much you balance is what matters. So whether it is from a chemical fertilizer or it is coming from an organic matter, plant needs what it requires. It will only take what it requires, it won't take excess. So how do you plan this is what is important. At the national level, if you look at the productivity, yields, etc., it's a myth that chemical fertilizers have contributed to the yield. In 1970, every kg of chemical fertilizer used to give 13 kg of yield, grain. Today, we are only giving 2.4. So you have to add more. Same grain. So you have to actually add more. And we are doing that. So we have seen that earlier farmer used to add only 1 bag of urea. Today they are using 4 or 5 bags of urea. And some areas they are using 10 or 15 also. So the cost on fertilizer went up because of that, which we are not realizing. And that decrease happened because of the nutrient reduction in the soil, not in the fertilizer. So your organic matter has gone down, you are not applying organic matter. And when the nutrient goes down in the soil, nutrients goes down in the crop, then it goes down in the human beings. So the whole nutrient deficiency in the country, if you see, that is because of your soils are not fertile. So the anemia, the zinc deficiency, and now government is talking about biofortification. rather than trying to improve the soil health. Because they look for an industrial solution because they think it is easy to do, and they think one check payment to the industry is much easier than actually giving, say, 1 crore checks to the farmers. But that's not that difficult, right? Second important issue, what people also don't realize, just going by numbers even, if every Indian has to eat 3 times a day, our entire population requires about 90 million tons of food grains, around 120 million tons of fruits and vegetables. That's what is the complete recommended, and none of us eat actually as a recommendation. We eat less than that. Even if we go by recommendation, we only need that. Today we are producing 300 million tons of food grains, 300 million tons of fruits and vegetables. Still 45% of children are malnourished. Why? Your access to food is more economical rather than actually physical availability. There could be a lot of food over there, but you are unable to buy it. Why are you unable to buy? Because you don't have money. Why you don't have money? Because you are not earning. Why you are not earning? Because you are not paid well. So this vicious cycle, if you don't break, if you are only going behind increasing the productivity, it won't help. Second important thing, food may be available even in the food I am eating, but my body has to absorb. My body can absorb only if I am healthy. Similarly is the soil also. Unless soil is healthy, plant cannot absorb. Nutrients may be there, but plant may not be able to absorb. There could be acidity, there could be alkalinity, all that problem. So we need to resolve all these issues. So solution doesn't lie in only running behind productivity improvement. Solution lies behind efficient production. So the efficient production comes in a balanced nutrition, whether it is a human beings or it is the soils. That's the transition which is required. Another important thing is, at the time of Green Revolution, since we were in a hurry to solve the food problem at that point of time, we chose to work in 2 states, just 2 crops. First let's see, and then we can expand. But we never changed. After that also, after 75 years, still we only support rice and wheat. We don't support other crops. Either in research or in production or in procurement, we don't do. And even procurement today, we are only doing from the 2 states and then not doing from others. So if you start changing this one, see, food habits of Tamil Nadu are very different from Punjab. So why should Tamil Nadu get rice from Punjab? At some point of time when you are not growing, they would have got. But today, why do you need? Why that desperation? So if these policies change, we can actually achieve food security. So I feel production is not an issue, particularly in Indian context where you can grow 3 crops, 3 seasons, right? See, unfortunately, we learn everything from West. See, if you take US, where we learned the Green Revolution, they only have 1 season. So whatever they have to grow only in 1 season. Next, they don't have summer season, they can't grow crops. Winter, they cannot grow crops. So all their yield is productivity, everything whatever they talk about, they are restricting to only 1 season. Second, they don't have labor, so they have to depend on machinery. But India is not that. So our technology, our solutions should lie based on our conditions. We can do much, much better.
But this thing is another related thing, because in Tamil Nadu, it's a very acute thing, that is in the chemical-based agriculture also, or in small entrepreneurs. This labor shortage is a major problem. They cannot get enough laborers, or we have to pay double and triple in various ways.
So the second one is right actually. If you look at, it is not that labor is not available. See, India is running a largest employment guarantee program because there is no employment available in the rural areas, right? So is it not a contradiction saying there is no work, so we are giving NREGA, and on the other hand we are saying labor is not available? Problem is not there. Problem is that the drudgery has not come down, payments are remaining stagnant. So if it is easy to work and if they get better paid, they will do it. But what we are trying to do is we are not invented or we are not innovated or any new technology which can help labor to do better work. See, if you are harvesting, if I need to do it with a sickle, I may need 20 people per acre. So 20 people into 500 rupees if we calculate the amount versus a harvester coming and doing it, I may give 2000 rupees. So that's the cost which farmer is estimating, which is justified. And farmer is unable to pay to the labor because it is becoming costlier. So why are we not working on finding solution there? Instead of artificially feeding them, why are we not improving their skills? Let them become service providers. Say 10 people may run a machine and then get the same income. 2 people may go and do the same thing and also can get the same income. So we can innovate on that. And there are a number of examples on that. Say Kerala, what they tried is they call it as green army. In India, farm machinery subsidies, for example, if you buy a tractor, you get subsidy on that. If you buy a harvester, you get subsidy on that. How much? 20 lakhs on a harvester, you get a subsidy. So in a village, for one person, you are giving 20 lakhs rupees subsidy. But imagine the same thing is given to the labor group, not to the individual farmer, because individual farmer only uses for small time and then rest of the time he also has to rent out. Give it to a group. So they can use it efficiently and go and do everywhere. Right? So that can improvise. In the farm machinery in India, nearly about 60-70% of tractors are in Punjab. They are used only for 10% of their time. Rest of the time it will be standing there and it is a prestige for them. That's it. And that lands them in indebtedness. Why should we do that? We can actually look, even if you take Tamil Nadu, we did in Andhra Pradesh the calculation. How many tractors were subsidized? How many harvesters were subsidized in a district? Do you actually need so many? You don't need. See, in an entire village, you need only one tractor. Why do you need so many tractors? So, if we can actually economize on that. Second, if the cost of seed is going up, you are subsidizing. If the cost of fertilizer is going up, you are subsidizing. Right? If the cost of transportation is going up, you are subsidizing. Diesel is if it is going up, you are subsidizing. If the labor cost is going up, why are you not subsidizing? It is not extending NREGA to agriculture. It can be a new scheme. I can say you are spending about say 10,000 rupees on labor or 20,000 rupees on labor to grow a groundnut crop. I calculate at 100 rupees a day and then I give you subsidy. You can spend the rest of the money. So we need to innovate on the schemes and subsidies so that it will be better rather than actually displacing them from agriculture. See, today what is happening is that you are not giving them work, so they migrate, and you have seen the whole migration crisis during the COVID time. Instead of them, if they can stay back in the village, find work there, get better employment, that's much, much better, right? So we need to look at how we can create opportunities in the village rather than displacing them. I see there will be a great shift which can happen if we can have farmer cooperatives and labor cooperatives and invest properly in them to design a better production system. Because they also will learn better practices, right? Today, how long we are going to have unskilled labor who daily wait to get a work? That's what is the situation, right? And nearly 30-40% of Indian population is like that. Daily they come on road, they will wait for someone to come and pick them up. Is it not shameful? Right? So we need to look at how we can build their skills. So somebody may become efficient in mango harvesting, mango management. Somebody else may become very efficient in paddy harvesting. So if you can bet on them, build their skills, we can actually use them. So we are only seeing hungry mouths. We are not seeing working hands, right? Why are we seeing only hungry mouths? So we are not able to find solutions around that. So I feel that's a failure of the institutions, failure of the government. So if we can work towards that, it will find a solution.
So that is there. That is the best part. How are you working with the government with this policy intervention? Because it is we find it is very difficult in Tamil Nadu. Because turning them towards these positive things is very difficult. That is there's a part of it is corruption like that is, but very mindset is very reluctant. So how you manage with your that is AP and Telangana government?
See, we face the same problem everywhere because humans are same everywhere. See, what happens is there are two ways of dealing with this. One is work and try to establish models and then try to negotiate, dialogue rather than debate. Some culture has come into our Indian culture. We tend to only debate. So whether you are right or I am right. So the moment you get into that, I always stick to my point, you stick to your point. We don't try to find a common ground. So some kind of negotiation is required. Second, a working model is required. Always we talk about an ideological framework, but we don't look at what can work, what can be done at the field level. So I think they should all, the original design was that government institutions will do this, but it didn't happen. And nowhere it happened. See, what happens is most of the innovations comes from practitioners. See, while I am doing it, if I face a problem, I try to find a solution for that. But how that can be taken to a large scale is what we need to figure out. Somebody sitting in an AC room thinking and studying agriculture cannot find a solution for a farmer's problem because I don't know even what is the problem, right? So if that has to happen and if that has to be learned by the government, a kind of dialogues with the government is important, and then establishing some of these models is very important. And always there will be governments and officers with a mindset who won't cooperate, and it happens. And change is gradual. So say for example Telangana. When Telangana was formed, state somehow had an opinion, the chief minister had an opinion that growing rice in Telangana is important. Because we are all very dry area, it doesn't look good, so we need to be green. So he wanted to be like a coastal belt. So what did he do? He has built so many dams, and then the land is not suitable for dams basically because we are in a higher plane. So he put a pump to pump the water. Because since you are a chief minister, you can invest on that. You did that. Now the problem is that you have more rice. You don't know where to sell. And you have more water. You don't know what to do with that. So that failures make them realize and then look at an alternative. Or they will go, somebody else will come and look for an alternative. So I think change is a long-term one. So like in the last 50, 60 years, green revolution happened. The new model also will happen in the next 5 to 10 years. If we all can work towards that and then negotiate with the government, I think that's what is important. But what is lacking is a proper understanding of different solutions and packaging for our condition. Say Tamil Nadu may require a certain package. What is that? If you work it out, either the current government or next government or current government also partly may adopt, because unless they are convinced, they won't do it. Right? Anyone, unless they are convinced, they won't do it. Like we tried to work with the farmers to create a small experience in their own condition. In the government also, that's what we do. What we do is we work with a bureaucrat and then say, in this small village, in your government program, we can show an example. Like I initially said about the pesticides. Then they get convinced. No amount of outside examples will convince them. In their own condition, if you can create a small example, it gets convinced. That's what my experience says.
So you were talking about this dialogue and convincing. As we see in Tamil Nadu, they have some soft approach towards big companies. Even Government of India is also having that. That is like Monsanto, like that. So is there any need for struggling, not only convincing and dialogue, some amount of debating and struggle also we need that. What is that? Is it happening in AP or Telangana? Or?
Yes, I'll take an example. Let's take the example of two examples actually I would say. Let's take the case of BT brinjal. So when the BT cotton was introduced, there was no dialogue. Basically, there was no dialogue at all. They always felt that technology works, so they brought in. We struggled a lot to bring to the notice of the government. Nothing worked. But when the BT brinjal happened, we could bring to the notice of the government, to the minister level, that alternatives are there. And before that, for almost 3 to 4 years, we worked with him, showing them alternatives in the village. So he was very convinced about alternatives. He didn't have a question about alternatives. So when the question of BT brinjal came in, he actually asked the right questions to the company. He asked the right question. He was so convinced that he could actually tell Prime Minister that I am very convinced that I can do alternatives. Are you convinced that this technology will deliver?
That is the knowledge level that is right.
No, I'm saying.
Interest is also there.
No, so it's always a struggle between people. So he negotiated and he changed the decision making, saying, why should I take a decision? Let's talk to the people. So that went into the public hearing, right? So it is all, that conviction he has is what brought to the public discourse, and then from there actually ban happened, right? So that is not only because of the whole fight we did. Whole fight also played a role. All the agitations, I'm not undermining that. All that also happened. But in spite of agitations, if he is not convinced, it would not have happened. I'm saying both are important. So whenever we are proposing something, how much they are convinced is an important issue. Say for example, tomorrow we'll go to the Chief Minister and then say, this kind of income support will work. So immediately the Chief Minister will have two questions: how much it will cost, and by doing that whether they will get a vote. These two are the questions. So this entire explanation to him, they will not sit with us and discuss for 3-4 hours, right? Actually someone he trusts should tell him. Who is that trustworthy person who can actually explain is something which is important. So that's a negotiation from our side, I would say. So it's not just fight. Agitations are important. I'm not undermining the agitations at all. But what is happening is that when we are agitating, are we actually asking a right demand? See, we agitate, but if we ask a wrong question, we may succeed, but it won't result in anything. Isn't it? So I think that's what the movement should realize. See, we are not like what we were doing in 60s. Situations have changed significantly. So it should be a kind of a balancing act between a constructive approach and a fight. Both should go together. Second important thing is, it's also a political thing. If I have to listen to you, I'm accepting a defeat. Politically, right? So no party is going to do that. So we have seen the farm laws agitation. We have seen many times, many things, right? If it is a constructive one, they will come up with as their solution and then they implement it. So it is also a strategy from our side which we need to look at.
Okay, the last question. What is your, you have seen, firstly you said, Tamil Nadu, and what is your suggestion for because we are interested in going organic, but as I said, so many difficulties we are facing with the farmers. But after Namalwar's effort, it is growing, but it is still not to that level.
See, two very interesting things compared to any other state Tamil Nadu has is a lot of youngsters actually working with farmers. I think nowhere in the country you could see that. I think Tamil Nadu is very unique in that front. Second, lot of historical knowledge you have. No other state has that. No other state has that. Telugu, for example, if I had to go and talk to what Telugu scripts have said, even Telugu teacher won't know it. But Tamil Nadu has that. And from there actually we need to pick up what actually Tamil Nadu requires. And there is a lot of body of knowledge, a lot of youngsters which are important. So how do we get them going is what is important together, rather than actually finding our own solutions in market or fighting with the government. I would say get the people together, at least look at few villages where we could show the results. That's one thing we need to do as a community outside the government. With the government, probably there should be a proper representation about what is happening across the country, what different models are happening, and then what is our demands. So there are 10 options to ensure income security, 10 options to pay directly to the farmer. There could be 5 ways of supporting our farmers shifting towards organic farming. Let's also accept, okay, yield reduction will happen, 5% reduction happens. So what happens? Why should we debate? It's okay, you try that. Let's try only in, say, 10 districts. Only let's try with 20% farmers. See, our goal is to reach somewhere, but where do we start is very important. See, that negotiation space we need to earn. Many times what happens is, where we fail is, we talk about end goals rather than how we are going there. So let's start where we can begin and where we can have a common understanding. If that's the case, I feel there would be a space. Say, let's have a strategy. Can Tamil Nadu reduce their fertilizer use by say 20% in the next 2 years? Can Thanjavur and Kadalur districts work towards reducing this? Can Thanjavur and Kadalur work with say 20 villages each and then create farmers cooperatives and then link them to market? They're easy to do with the governments. Once that happens, then why are you not doing is the next question comes in easily, and then they also realize it is much easy to do this way. So I would say if we can change a little bit our strategies and also start writing about it, other experiences. So we are only trying to find solutions within ourselves. There are also solutions outside. Why not we get them? Adapt to the situations rather than just copy paste. So major failures from Green Revolution to today happened because of the copy paste. Let's not do copy paste. Let's look at, based on the Tamil Nadu conditions, what is best. Say, can we have a draft paper which you all can come together and say, Tamil Nadu, today this is the situation. So in 5 years, if we want to reach out here, this is the steps. And then this is the policy changes probably required. And this may require so much funding, finance. And anyway, you're wasting the resources today. So can we try on a small pilot and then move on? That's the kind of thing if we can come up with. Probably most sensible people should agree for that. Then anyway we have our agitations going on. So together we can actually try and with the work.
Very kind of you.